Hey guys, hello and welcome to another episode of GameHammer Dailies. Today, I'm not a massive football fan. I did play for my school team back in the late 80s, but I'm not a massive football fan, which is a bit of an oddity, but there you go. But, however, it is the World Cup and I kind of got a little bit of World Cup fever, so we're going to be reviewing some football games. And what we're actually going to be reviewing is all of the FIFA games that I can get my hands on. It's going to take 3 days to do it, but I think we can do it, so let's get started. Beginning in 1993 as FIFA International Soccer on pretty much every system going at the time, from the Amiga right through to the Mega Drive and even on the handhelds, FIFA was a game that looked and played a lot like every other football game going. The isometric view and decently animated sprites set the series up well, but for the time it wasn't exactly anything to write home about when compared with the competition. So let's move on a few years. I've never been a big football game fan, so my FIFA collection is spotty at best. The only games I have to hand are FIFA 64 on the Nintendo 64 and a complete run of the series on PlayStation 2, so that's where this review will be focusing. Because there are 16 FIFA games on the PS2 plus the N64 title to go through, this review will have to be split into 3 parts. We'll begin at the start, go on to the middle titles, and then end with the final entries on the PS2. That way, we can get a decent idea of how the series has changed and evolved over the years, because unlike the reputation that most annual titles have received, FIFA isn't usually just a few graphical tweaks here and there and an update to the rosters each year. The games actually change a lot over the course of the series, so this should be an interesting look into the world of FIFA in video games. Right, let's get started. The year is 1997, and FIFA 64 has just landed on the Nintendo 64. Essentially, it's a rebadged FIFA 97, but it is the first football simulation game for the Nintendo 64, the first proper one anyway. So it should be the one that sets the standard for future titles. How does it fare up? Well, to be honest, I didn't like it. The controls are clunky, and it doesn't feel good to play. Which button is it? Right, okay, so A selects your player, and B apparently does the actions. Is that how this works? It's not quite responsive enough to feel like you're fully in control of all the players at all the time, and the AI on your team doesn't feel quite right. Your team isn't working like a team. They're doing what they want and not properly responding to what you are doing on the screen, so people aren't in the right places to pass to. As a result, it's difficult to strategically line up a good pass to get a shot on goal, which is really an important thing for a football game, you know? It's fast-paced, you can play it, it's not bad, it's just not what I was hoping for. Graphically though, it's not bad at all. The N64 isn't being pushed to its limits, not by a long shot, but it does look pretty good for the time, and I can't fault the sound either. Altogether, there's a lot of room for improvement, but it is a decent start. Playing multiplayer is probably the best way forward with this game though, because then you and your opponent will both be suffering from the same control problems, and that puts you on a level playing field. Let's move on. Now, we're going to have to pass over several years here because I don't have any FIFA games for the rest of the N64's life, or any for the PlayStation at all. I only started picking these games up because I'm collecting for certain systems, the N64 and the PlayStation 2 being primary targets in that respect. So we're going to have to drop back into the FIFA series in 2001 when the first FIFA game arrived for the PlayStation 2. FIFA 2001 is more in keeping with modern FIFA style, albeit with a heavy amount of the early 3D days still visible. The graphics aren't brilliant, although they are pretty good for the time, and the gameplay is far more arcade-like than in later entries. I'm very much appreciative of the information provided by the highlights circle on this outing. It indicates not only which player you're in control of at any time, but also whether they have possession of the ball, and what the likelihood of passing to each player in their vicinity is like. That's really useful, and it helps a lot with your on-field tactics. When passing, the player you are controlling will target a nearby player on the same team, or the goal in the case of you trying to score. That's really useful because you can't always see who is nearby on your team and who is likely to block any of your passes. Much better already. We've been at a tackle, we've had a chance at goal. Well, we're good at it, but we had a chance. Yeah, this is good. I'm enjoying this. The game is fast-paced, reasonably good at keeping up with button presses, and it's actually a lot more enjoyable than I expected it to be. I like this one. Now let's move on. Because I've got all 16 FIFA games on the PS2 to hand, it's possible to see the rapid change in how the game works. There's a stereotype around annual franchise games that the only thing that changes year on year is a graphical tweak. A little tweak here, a little tweak there, and then slap on a new number and sell it all over again. But that's not always true, and FIFA is one of those series where it's definitely not true. These games change quite drastically from time to time, so it's interesting to see how they progress. Several changes were introduced with FIFA 2002, the most noticeable to me being the power bars. Now it's easier to judge the power of your passes because there's a bar on the screen that fills up when you hold the button down. No more misjudging your power, which is great. Well, unless you're like me and you weren't actually paying attention to it, then it's just as problematic as it's always been. You can't say the game isn't trying though. The other major change is the removal of the indicator arrow on your highlight circle. The game will also no longer target nearby players for passes, and it doesn't give you a clue which player would be the best to pass to. That's not as good. I think it would have been better if we kept the other one, but we are where we are. Yeah, the slide tackles are just as good. It's a decent game. I put further out, the cameras move further back. So you get a better view of the pitch, but not as good a view of the player. Oh, so close! We almost had a goal there. Instead, you now pass in the direction that you have to be pushing the left analog stick when you press the pass button. This is all part of the move away from arcade action and into simulation territory. I'm not as keen on it as other people might be, but you do get used to it eventually. There's also a special extra FIFA game in 2002 for the World Cup. Now you might be thinking that this is a simple reskin of either FIFA 2001 or FIFA 2002 in order to cash in on the World Cup, but you would be mistaken. This is a different game altogether, with its own visual style and its own take on the various on-screen indicators, such as the highlight disc under your currently selected player's feet. It plays a fair amount like FIFA 2002, as you might expect, but it has some traits that are unique to itself at this point in the series, which helps to make this game stand apart from its counterpart in the main series. The passing mechanic is still the same. You pass in a direction rather than to a person, so they haven't made that better. Yep, this is a different game. They've added in odd effects when you do a shot, so that's interesting. Looks good though, feels pretty good, the controls are decent. Same controls as before, which is good. Continuity control is the way to go. No, there's an oddity. People are moving in parts as if it's in slow motion. It's not quite right. FIFA 2003 is another one that features some pretty strong changes. Graphically, this is the most impressive of the games so far. It has a new graphics engine that's apparent right from the start, and it's quite responsive to play, with new enhancements to player movement and the AI. Of all the games so far, this one is my favourite. It's fun to play, it's responsive, and it looks good. FIFA 2004, on the other hand, is another example of where the game is being tweaked and played with behind the scenes, instead of being simply a slight graphical enhancement with a new number plastered on the front. Whoa, what happened? Zoomed out so far. The grass looks great, it's definitely a grass-like look, but everyone's slow and it's zoomed out really far. And that is this is not good. There's an interesting addition of interaction with Total Club Manager 2004, where individual football games from that management sim can be played out in FIFA 2004. Sadly, I learned about this after I'd already recorded all the footage for this video, so we can't try it out. Maybe if we cover the Total Club Manager series in the future, we'll be able to give that a try. And there you are, we've got to stop it there because this is going to take ages to get through. If we tried to do it all in one video, it would be massive, and I don't think any of us have got time for that. So, I'll see you tomorrow for the next part.